I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he's said he just came from a neighbor's house, and we know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated, he's got tape around his legs, he's hungry, and he's thirsty.
The 8 passengers case just took a super messy turn, and the courtroom drama is getting crazier by the minute. I mean, we're talking about Ruby Franke now making some pretty shocking accusations like sexual abuse against her own kids. Like, seriously disturbing stuff. Guys, things are thick because even YouTube got involved. It gets even worse because more and more people, especially family members, are stepping forward, dishing out some seriously messed up info that we had no clue about. You know, we used to wonder how Ruby Franke and Kevin treated their kids when cameras weren't rolling, because what they showed us already made us cringe. But now, after closely following this whole case, yep, let's just say Ruby, Kevin, and Jody are monsters. Hold on tight, loves, because I've got a lot to fill you in on, starting with the heartbreaking 911 call that started all these things all the way to the shocking court confessions. All right, loves, without wasting any more time, let's dive right into it.
911, the address of your emergency. Tell me exactly what's happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door.
So by now, the news about Ruby Franke and Jody Hindlebrandt's arrest is like a broken record. But hold up, we haven't given enough credit to the neighbor who made the 911 call, because people had been trying to get the police and CPS involved in this case for years. There was even an online petition at one point begging the authorities to rescue those kids. But guess what? Ruby and Kevin somehow managed to slip through the cracks, even making a video where they basically laughed at all of us because they thought they were untouchable.
With her.
I was accused of abuse. It's like, it's abuse to expect your children to be responsible.
To grow up and be productive adults.
So again, to contradict.
So yeah, that 911 call was a game changer. Trigger warning, loves, your heart will drop into your stomach when you hear Jody's neighbor describe the state of Ruby's son when he came running for help. He ran to ask for help.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he's said he just came from a neighbor's house, and we know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated, he's got tape around his legs, he's hungry, and he's thirsty.
Tonight, the haunting 911 call from the neighbor who found the son of Ruby Franke after he allegedly escaped from being tied up in a basement.
Fox 13 News reporter Lucy Nelson breaks down that phone call and tells us what came out of the YouTube mom's first court appearance today.
Lucy joins us now live in studio. And Lucy, for those just catching up on this story, describe who we're talking about here and who was in court.
Kelly, Ruby Franke is a Utah mother of 6 behind a well-known parenting YouTube channel called
So right off the bat, from what we can hear in that call, the neighbors knew something fishy was going on at Jody Hindlebrandt's house. Remember, y'all, that's the same place where Jody and Ruby used to host their channel, dishing out therapy and parenting advice. While in the basement, there were kids who were duct taped and practically dying of thirst and hunger. And loves, is it just me, or does it feel a little too convenient that Jody's house is tucked away in such an isolated neighborhood? Now, I get it, people love the peace and quiet, but I'm starting to think Jody chose this spot so she could run her torturous show without anyone knowing and keeping her victims far, far away from the rest of the world.
Police say this is the house a young child escaped from and went to a neighbor's house asking for food and water. They said that child was severely malnourished along with another one they found inside the same home. Now,
the dispatcher on the other end asked if there was anybody nearby looking for the kids, and the caller said no, their homes are pretty far apart. So this brave kid, bless their heart, they walked several doors down the street in this not so crowded neighborhood, mind you, and as soon as they rang that doorbell, they asked the person inside to call the police. Now, here's where it gets really heart-wrenching. The neighbor in the middle of the call legit started crying while describing this poor kid's health.
This kid has obviously been, I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
And get this, Ruby's son even said they were being told these atrocious punishments were all their fault for being undisciplined. Classic Mormon stuff. Remember how Ruby Franke used to go all in on this when punishing her kids? She'd call it the consequences of your actions.
You promise? Look at Mama. I just got a text message from Eve's teacher, and she said that Eve did not pack a lunch today, and can I bring a lunch over to the school? This happens quite often when you're raising children, because I know that her teacher is uncomfortable with her being hungry and not having a lunch, and it would ease her discomfort if I came to the school with a lunch. But I responded and just said Eve is responsible for making her lunches in the morning, and she actually told me she did pack a lunch. So the natural outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry. And hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch. I'm gonna explain the rules to this.
7.
Okay, loves, with that out of the way, let's get into the courtroom. People are going wild over this.
Franke and Hildebrand had their first court appearance Friday in Washington County.
My case is assigned to Judge Barnes. I would make an oral motion today to transfer this case to Judge Walton so that co-defendants track each other.
First of all, the interest in the 8 passengers case has been super high to the point that it has been derailing the hearing, y'all. People are literally tuning in to watch the court hearings live, while others are showing up in person just to catch a glimpse of this infamous duo.
At one point, one of the lawyers outside the court told everyone that even the judge was having a hard time signing on to the online hearing with as many as 1,200 observers. Some people even showed up in person to see the latest in a case that had both captivated and concerned them.
Now, let's talk about their first court hearing. The judge decided to switch things up, making Ruby's judge the same as Jody's to help streamline the process. And it was also determined that the two will continue to be held without bond. But guess what, y'all? Our 2 masters of torture have already had it in jail. They are asking for an expedited detention hearing, which basically means that they're trying to speed up the process and get released on bond, citing health challenges. These 2 can even bring in doctors to confirm that they have a rare jail-titis, a condition that only affects them in custody. Nobody is buying into their shenanigans. So they were healthy enough to torture others for years, but taking accountability is where they draw the line. I thought they were all about living by the consequences of your actions. Of course, many people wish they would rot in prison, but that's not even the meat of it. Let me shift your attention to a separate child welfare hearing case for Ruby Franke and her husband to determine the custody of their children. It was during this hearing that Ruby said the unthinkable, like literally trying to drag her kids down with her. Would you believe that Ruby Franke blatantly blamed her children for making her treat them the way that she did, even going as far as accusing one of them of well. So you're telling me that the same Ruby, who has been emotionally, physically, mentally, and financially abusive towards her own, is the victim here? Let's just read the rest of the article before dissecting this further. Mother of 6, Ruby Franke sobbed in court as she appeared for a shelter hearing for her 4 minor children to determine custody. Speaking to the public courtroom Thursday, the Mormon mom at times broke down as she made shocking claims that one of her minor children, their sibling, and several other family members and children in the neighborhood over the years. Okay, loves, can we brainstorm on this slowly and without being biased? You see, the thing is, we can't totally sweep these allegations under the rug because if this wild tale is true, we're talking about over 20 here. But hear me out, loves. We've all seen how these kids were dealt the strict for the tiniest of slip-ups. Ruby, with her rock-solid Mormon beliefs, always said that people should face the consequences of their choices. So, are you seriously telling me that this same Ruby would let such a serious issue slide under her radar? That this child she's accusing had a hand in something so grave, involving over 20 kids, including relatives? I mean, this isn't so Ruby-like, if you ask me. Furthermore, she broke down severely during these custody hearings, which is also quite quite unlike her, and some people would say that those were just crocodile tears to get the sympathy votes. Well, let's leave it up to the courts to decide the truth of the matter. But one thing's for sure, my friends, there are some serious major red flags waving here. And if this turns out to be a made-up tale, we might just be dealing with a classic psychopath. It gets worse, loves. This matter keeps going south. The article also says she claimed that one of the Franke kids began looking at just 3 years old. Now, if this were true, then Ruby might have cooked her own goose here. Because if a 3-year-old is watching such adult content, the real question is, how did the kid get access to the material? There's no way a 3-year-old would intentionally and categorically set out to look for those kinds of things and watch. I mean, that's purely Cocomelon era. So Ruby might have added yet another case to answer, because both the public and the courts would want to know who was granting that kid access to porn. By the end of this session, it was clear that Ruby Franke only showed up to do one job: character. Yet she and her estranged husband publicly displayed alarming levels of child neglect, emotional and physical, to the point that they were no longer being referred to as the 8 passengers, but as 6 prisoners. It is so unfortunate that after years and years of serving as a fake personality, fake smiles, and a fake happy family, Ruby's true colors showed during that custody hearing. You'd think any normal parent would be sobbing at the idea of their kids ending up in foster homes until you meet Ruby Franke. Sadly, that was the best option for the 8 passenger kids. The worst part is that these poor kids are likely to be split up. And let's not even start on how tough that'll be for them. The public outrage concerning this case isn't dying down anytime soon, and some people have even created a guide on how to spot parents based on this incident. So this is where YouTube had to take a stand, and they said enough is enough. They finally deleted any traces of Ruby and Jody's presence on their platform, which came after years and years of public uproar. One of the YouTube correspondents said, "We can confirm that we have terminated 2 channels linked to Ruby Franke in accordance with our creator responsibility guidelines." What took them so long though? The truth is, regulating these family vlog channels or just any other channel on the platform is quite a challenge. You see, while it's true that exploiting your kids and trying to look happy is unacceptable, there is so much that goes into proving that the channel had broken community guidelines. Furthermore, family members have also been stepping up and sharing their side of the story. They have really had it tough, because can you imagine how tough this must be for them? People have been pointing fingers at them, saying they should have rescued these poor kids sooner, yet we don't know what they have been dealing with behind closed doors.
Arrested.
If you have the internet, you have seen news articles on my sister, Ruby, from the 8 passengers, and my sisters and I, we are on the very same page.
Apart from Ruby's sister, someone else is talking. Kevin's nephew, Matthew Franke, also had a ton to say, especially regarding his aunt's practices and Jody's too. Matthew is also the other person who has boldly called out for the arrest of Kevin, because let's be real for a minute, guys, he's just as guilty as the 2 ladies.
Be in public anymore. And as sad as I am to say it, I think Kevin should be arrested too. Me and my dad have been having a hard time believing that he had 0 contact with his family, that he had no idea that, Ruby would leave them for long stretches of time.
Now, currently, there is no official schedule.
Matthew admitted that Ruby came off as super strict and had strange views on a lot of things, but he never imagined how far she could go with this whole disciplining kids situation.
Doing that to her children.
Did you believe it based on your knowledge of their home life, or did you talk about it in that family group chat, supportively of Ruby or otherwise?
We didn't really talk supportively of Ruby, because our family specifically, we've never really been super fond of her, because she hasn't really been super fond of us. So a couple of my sisters, for example, were like, "Oh, she finally got arrested," and
is that how you felt, Matthew?
A little bit. I didn't think that she would get arrested for anything. I certainly thought that she had Utah mom vibes, was kind of strict, had strange thought processes on things, but I never thought that she would have been capable of doing that to
Matthew also disclosed that they had very limited contact with Ruby and the kids, and that they never knew about all these, which makes perfect sense because just like Jody choosing to live in a secluded neighborhood, there's something about separating you from the rest of the world before they start hurting you. And in the case of these kids, they were not mature enough to spot what is.
Children during the few encounters that he had with them over the last couple of years.
Did you ever witness her doing anything that was harsh towards the kids, your cousins?
No. Admittedly, though, I've only seen them over a few brief encounters over the last 10 years, like the rest of my family. Just the occasional lunch with my cousin Sherry, and then Christmas family reunions up at my grandparents' home. And when we would see them then, everything seemed fine. You know, they always had something to kind of brag about, you know, something good to report on. So yeah, we didn't really think any of that was going on.
Well, so there you have it, loves. Ruby Franke has gone from being a mom and a family vlogger to a defendant.
I'm only gonna say it one more time, and then you're gonna lose the privilege to eat dinner.
The 8 passengers case is one that will linger around for quite some time, and many believe we haven't even gotten to the worst part yet. Anyways, loves, keep it locked here, cause I'll always keep you in the loop on the latest developments in the case. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next video.